Did you know you can support the Technology Show when you shop at Amazon.com? Become a friend of the show by starting your shopping at thetechnologyshow.com/shop. It's Tuesday, September the 10th, 2013. Live from Rural Pickens, South Carolina, back in the captain's chair after a week in a third world country. I'm Matthew T.G.
I am Heath Mulligan.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to The Technology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. This is episode 216.
Good to have you guys back, safe and sound. I did not touch anything while you were gone, so...
Well, the computer crashed right before we started. Are you sure?
It was not my fault.
So the whole time I've known you, big Cowboys fan, and you walk in here with a Philadelphia Eagles jersey on. I don't even know you, man.
Well, there's people. A lot of people don't know this, but if you're a Cowboys fan and you move to the Philadelphia area, you can have split allegiances. That's allowed. I had the choice between this jersey, my Romo jersey, or the Clemson Tigers shirt worn by Danny Ford on the sideline during their national championship win, which I will wear before the end of the season.
All right, so we're back this week. We were off last week, and because we were in Haiti,
and so first time trip, Tony. I've talked a lot on the show about it over the past 3 years. Your first experience. Debrief a little bit.
Yes, still processing it, but it was a great week. Wonderful people. Great to see Greg and Heidi Edmonds and the work that they're doing. Have a much greater admiration for what Greg is doing, and the challenges that he faces. You know, he gets work teams, but a lot of times he doesn't know the skill set that he's going to have until
or lack of skill set.
Yeah, well, in my case, lack of skill set. Yeah.
So tremendous amount of respect for him and what they're doing there. But it was great to finally be there. We've done so many interviews from people from the compound and the projects that are going on there, and we'll have some more interviews from people there. In the future.
One of my desires going this time was that we'd take time to record a few things to bring back. We were just so stupidly busy. There was no time. Like I
gave up after like 2 hours on the first work day. I was like, gee,
So the big question is, obviously there was not an international incident while you were there,
right? Yeah.
But how much did you get done while you were in Haiti?
I know you guys. Real quick, we keep hearing this laughter in the background. Let's just go ahead and welcome our guest for the week. Chad McCallum from Global Partners is with us. Chad, hey, great having you this morning.
Man, it's really great to see you guys again, and glad to know there were no international incidents while you guys were in Haiti.
Yes.
All right, so Chad, put up with our nonsense here just for a little bit more. All right, you were going to say after the national.
Well, I mean, I know they're kind of on a time crunch there to get guest house and things done. So
so I worked all week on one project, and
that
was putting up ceilings in the guest house.
Awesome.
And so huge crick in
my
my
neck. Word. It was Matthew, Jonathan Fowler, and Philip Wilson, and I wish you could see the amount of work they got done. I mean, it really was. And I've been on, 5 or 6 work teams, and I would say that this is the best work team I've ever been on in terms of the amount of work and the number of workers that we had.
And the attitude of people.
Oh,
it's hot, it's humid, your fans go off at 4 in the morning, you can't sleep, you're dragging and tired, but nobody was...
Cat would go running through the room, so.
Yeah, well, now TG's dog shows up once in a while in
every once in a while you see it around that corner right there. It looks like a little rat.
Yeah, I like to tell people that this studio is our former bedroom. This used to be a Sherry and I's bedroom, so sometimes Barry White comes on. You hear it in the back.
Yeah.
All right, well...
I've been really trying, man.
Chad, you just picked the best week to be on here, man.
Yeah. Happy anniversary.
All right, Chad, we do want to turn this around here. Listen, I apologize to you because I forgot to put the bio up. So for people who don't know you, just start out by telling a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, 3 kids, 1 wife. We have 3 boys, and actually, I always tell people, because it really is a testimony to what God can do. We, when Julie and I got married, doctors had told us we probably couldn't have kids, and so I got a different doctor, and I kept the same wife. Now we have 3 boys. We have Chase, who's in 4th grade. And then we have Miles, who's in 2nd grade. Sorry, I get them mixed up. 4th grade, 2nd grade, Miles, and then preschool is Jackson, who we actually named after to honor Dennis Jackson, who's the director here at Global Partners.
Oh, nice.
And he's been a real key part of my life, and he actually dedicated our Jackson as well, which was pretty neat. So, yeah. So I've been a pastor, and
for some
now I serve as.
I'm sorry. Keep going. Keep going. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, now I serve as Director of Mobilization here at Global Partners. So.
Yeah, and for those who really need like the nitty gritty on you, you are a Purdue fan. What?
No! Whoa!
What?
We gotta slow the truck down. I'll tell you the true story on that is I am a huge Michigan fan. I stayed up till midnight watching that thing, and I let my kids stay up till midnight to watch that thing on the weekend. But I took my boys during the day. I scored some tickets off of StubHub to the Purdue football game for $2 a piece. Nice. And took them to the football game, and we just had a great time. And my boys are like, Dad, if it's okay, we're going to like Purdue now and Michigan. And so Purdue's horrible in football. Like, I don't know. I mean, just horrible. So
what does it say about Purdue football that you can get tickets on StubHub for $2?
Yeah, I know.
Dude, who did they play? Because Clemson played South Carolina State on Saturday, and the tickets were $30 on StubHub.
Yeah, they played Indiana State, which is a Division II school.
Yikes. The Sycamores.
And they had to pick it off on the final play of the game to win the game.
Oh, terrible.
Oh, no. That's
crazy.
Not good. Well, listen, last time we talked with you, we discussed the church plant you spearheaded in Michigan, and even though you've moved on to other ministry responsibilities, let's begin by talking about the church plant and what it was like to hand that off and then move on to the next ministry chapter in your life.
Right. Yeah, we planted a church 7 years ago on the south edge of Grand Rapids in a town called Byron Center. And the church was called Compass Church. CompassChurchOnline.org is the website. And I would say for me, leaving kind of pastoral life, I've been in pastoral ministry, goodness, I think 17 years. My wife could probably correct me on that, but pretty much ever since I've been out of college. I had 2 years where I worked at Indiana Wesleyan in recruitment, but then other than that, I've been in a church setting of some kind. So leaving the church plant, it was tough. It was different than leaving other places that I'd left before because it was kind of my baby, and you look around, starting your own church, when you follow somebody who'd been somewhere for 30 years, for the first 3 years there, you can, blame it all on them,
right.
Anything that's wrong. And I remember one day being in a meeting and I'm like, why in the world do we even do it this way? And somebody said, Chad, we do it that way because you said to do it that way. I'm like, steak. So I really wrestled and prayed a lot, obviously, and talked to wise counsel and to my wife. It was easier for me letting the church go because they did have a pastor that they'd talked to, who's a great guy. His name's Linsky. He's from Puerto Rico and just super smart. And when I heard that they were talking to him, he had been teaching at a large church in Grand Rapids called Calvary Church, which is actually, here's a little bit of weirdness. He actually had the role at Calvary Church, which is where a guy by the name of Ed Dobson was the pastor for years. He was in the same role at Calvary as Rob Bell was in, only his theology is a little stronger than Rob Bell's. So, but he was Wesleyan, came out of the Wesleyan Academy in Guaynabo.
Oh, yeah.
And his sister actually runs that. So when I heard that he was interested, it was pretty easy for me just to say, "Hey, I'll get the moving truck and move out of the way." Yeah. So they're doing well, and from everything I can tell, they're doing well, and really grateful for how God led through that whole process. I really think the thing that I learned through that is to find quiet places and just say, "God, what are you really doing?" Yeah. And it's in those quiet places you can kind of begin to see the dots connect. And that's what it was for me coming here. It was just like, well, the dots really do connect on this one. And so here I am. So
that's awesome. Well, tell our listeners about your current responsibilities at Global Partners and how has that transition been?
Right. Yeah, my role here within Global Partners, we have our general director, Dr. Dennis Jackson, who actually is in New Zealand, I believe, today with Richard Waugh. People ask me what it's like working for Dennis. I tell him he's the best boss I ever had. He's never here, and so it's fantastic. But I hope he's not watching. But we have general director, and then we have directors within the office. I serve as director of mobilization, which, to use a term that people may understand more, in essence, is the admissions office, if you will, of Global Partners. And it has to do with how do we help people who are new, who have interests that come to us, but also how can we more and more speak into the lives of churches and really wave the flag of what God's doing around the world. And so more and more of my engagement, somebody said, how did a church planner end up at Global Partners? More and more of my engagement is how do we work with churches and just really, connecting with pastors along the way. And so it's been an exciting journey. It's been a change, obviously. It literally hit me on a Saturday night. The first Saturday night I was here, I thought, oh man, I got to work on my sermon. Like I got to look at my sermon. I was so used to that pattern. And then I realized, like, I don't have to do that, Yeah. And so it isn't a different that's bad. It's just different.
So that statement leads me to a question. Are there any other positions open and available?
Hey, well, let me ask you.
We are constantly looking for qualified people.
Hey, let me ask you a personal question, Chad. What church in the headquarters area have you and your family kind of plugged into, and what's that been like? Because really, it's the first time you and your family have looked. I mean, you're looking for a church that you're not going to be, working 100 hours a week at. You know what?
When my sister lives down here, and she had invited us to her church, and we had been just along the way. We had visited. But when we came, we said, hey, we live in Noblesville, Indiana, which is we probably live about 20 minutes from headquarters here, and in a wonderful neighborhood. We just said, hey, we want to get connected in the community in which we live. And there's a Wesleyan church plant called Waterline.
Nice.
It's 2 years old. Pastor's name is John Freed. Meets in rented facilities, sets up, tears down, the whole deal. I sat down with John maybe first or second week we were in town. I just told him, look, man, I come in peace. Like I may have been a pastor before, but more than anything, I just want to be part of the church and whatever that means. And my wife and I are probably some of the oldest ones there, which I kind of like. They sing songs that honestly I don't know half of them. They're singing songs by John Mark McMillan, who I had no clue. He sounded like a novelist to me about him. And like they sing, that song, How He Loves Us?
Yeah.
Oh, He Loves Us, How He Loves Us. Well, like the Chris Tomlin version of that is Heaven Greets Earth, or the Crowder version is Heaven Greets Earth like an unforeseen kiss.
Yeah.
They sing it the way John Mark McMillan wrote it, which is a sloppy wet.
That's right. Sloppy wet.
Man, so
that sounds like a KGV church. They only stick with the original.
Yeah, but all that to say, being part of the church has been really great, and my boys, it's their church now. And if you ask my young son Jackson, who's 4, and you say to him, "Where do you go to church?" He'll say, "Waterline Church." And a few weeks ago, we were sitting in a church down here for my niece and nephew. They were being baptized. my little boy Miles turned to me during it and said, "Dad, what are we doing here?" And I thought it was like some existential question, you know. And I'm like, "Well, we're here to honor God." And he's like, "No, why are we even in this church?" And I was like, "Because Bailey and Braden are being baptized, and Uncle Chad, I'm doing it." And he said, "No, this isn't our church. We go to Waterline." He's like, "I don't ever want to come to this church again. I only want to go to Waterline." And so he's a bit of a church snob, but I'm glad he's grateful. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, we love it. John Freed's fantastic.
Yeah, he's a great
if you
guy,
ever wanna
man.
listen, they let me speak every once in a while, and which is nice. And they let the old man. They give me a rocking chair and a cane. So
good.
That's funny.
So you've been in your present position for a few weeks now. I'm just curious what might be some of your goals, maybe some short-term goals, some long-term goals, and just what you kind of hope to do in that position.
Right. I would say from a goal point of view, historically, and I grew up. I grew up in the Wesleyan Church and grew up around it. And historically, I would always see missions portrayed as, well, if you want to be a missionary, you either need to be a pastor, so you're going to kind of work with other, doing ministerial training, or you're going to be in the medical field. You're going to be a nurse or a doctor or something like that. Or you may just have some basic skills like swinging a hammer, greater understanding. And so my desire is, how do we see more and more people say, yeah, I'd be part of this. I want to serve cross-culturally, whether that's for 3 months or 3 years or 30 years. And just to see that happen in a greater way is something I'm real excited about. So,
Very good.
A lot of people may not know this about you, Chad, but you actually do some stand-up comedy, which is one of the reasons I like you so much. So how did you get into stand-up comedy? Is that something you still do every now and then? And if people are listening right now and they want to book you, how would they go about doing that? Because you just told me you're coming into town, and I'm thinking, hey.
I'm bringing the show to South Carolina in November. So, no, I tell you, I started doing comedy when we started the church. I've always been sanguine. My dad was telling somebody the other day that every once in a while he'll look at family pictures and he'll say, I look at your sister and I think, yeah, that makes sense. I can see how she came from your mom and I. And then he says, and then I look at you and I think, how did that even happen? And, so I'm like, Dad, you leave the jokes to me. But
yes.
I started doing comedy back when we started the church. Went to Dr. Grin's Comedy Club in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Nice.
And went there on an open mic night. A guy named Michael Jr., Christian comedian, was doing jokes that night. He was the feature act. That's why we had gone. And it was open mic. And if you don't know what open mic is, it's a little bit like that day in preaching class when they hand the microphone to like 5 people and they tell them they have 3 minutes each to try to make a point about something. Mm-hmm. It's like that, only there's more profanity involved. It's pretty much what it is. Like, it's painful. It's just painful. And my buddy says to me, hey, you ought to do that. Like, you're funny. You're a funny preacher, which I didn't know what that meant. But I told him, he's like, Chad, when you preach, people laugh. And I thought about it, like, to be called a funny preacher, you tell about 3 jokes in 30 minutes. You're hysterical if you do that.
Yeah.
You tell 3 jokes in 30 minutes as a stand-up comedian, and you're unemployed is what you are.
Yeah.
And you tell 30 jokes in 30 minutes, you're unemployed is what you are too. So anyway, I met a guy there named Stu McCallister, who's the MC down there at that club. And I said, hey, what's a guy got to do open mic? And he said, you just got to get on my list. And so I started doing it, and I did it honestly just to build bridges with people who didn't know Christ.
Wow.
And those guys have stayed my friends. They're friends on Facebook. They post things that are highly inappropriate and just totally, out of bounds. And but they're my friends, and they know, my love for Christ. They've been to my church.
Yeah.
That when I had a church, they were at my church some, and just really. I did it because, again, I felt like it was someplace Jesus would have been. And I remember one night doing comedy. I got the guy who was the headliner that night was a guy named Ted Alejandro, who's actually he's probably my favorite secular comedian. He's not clean. Like, don't go watch him saying, "Hey, Chad said to watch this guy." Don't do that. He's not like, he uses foul words and all of that. But I think he's smart. I think he's a really smart guy. Anyway, he came up to me after his show. He lives in New York City. He's been on Comedy Central a couple times, and he came up to me after his set, and he was like, "Hey man, you killed it." Which, by the way, that's like a compliment. Like if somebody says you killed it after church, it probably isn't the best. If somebody says you killed it at a comedy club, that's great. And so he's like, "Man, you killed it." He said that whole bit about you being a pastor, because I talk openly about it. He said that whole bit about you being a pastor, he's like, "You need to keep using that, man, because like that's got legs." And I'm like, "Dude, it's real." Like, and literally, like what he said next, I can't repeat, because he was pretty much like, "Well, what in the world are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm just trying to connect with some people, man. Like, trying to grow a church and reach people for Jesus." And he said, "Do you think we could talk?" And literally, we sat there for probably close to an hour, I would say. And we did a little pastoral counseling in the back of Dr. Grin's one and closed the place down. So
that's awesome.
How do you book me? You know what? I'm not doing jokes as much anymore because, to be honest, Dr. Lyon doesn't find all of them funny. So I used to tell a joke. I actually can tell this now because I can say I used to tell this joke.
Yes.
Now that I work at headquarters, I can't tell this joke
Wait a
anymore,
minute. All right, I'm ready.
No, but I used to say that I wake up every morning and I go to woodtv.com. This is when I lived in Grand Rapids. I'd go to woodtv.com, which is our local TV station, to see what's changed in Grand Rapids overnight. And then I would go to weather.com to see what changed in the weather overnight. And then I would go to wesleyan.org just to make sure nothing changed. And, some people didn't like that joke. And then other people were like, "Hey, that's a compliment. Like, that's a high compliment that nothing changed." And I don't tell that joke anymore. I used to tell that joke.
We can tell that you don't tell.
And if you went on the website today, it has changed.
All changed. Yeah. So,
hey,
but no, I don't do jokes a whole. I haven't done it as much. Being a dad, and honestly, this job, what God wants to see happen, I think, is really big, and more, I just find my heart saying, "How can I be about that?"
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I still tell jokes at family gatherings, and my kids know them all. So
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Your comment there that you feel like it's just something that Jesus would do in terms of getting in, mingling with people and stuff like that. And I think that your illustration that with this one comedian that you highly respect, that it turns into an hour-long conversation. I just wonder how many places there are in our own communities where we have deemed them unrestricted. That we need to break barriers and get into.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of Wesleyan pastors tune into this. I'll just tell you right now, there's not a fire station in our country that if you called them today and you said, "Hey, do you need a chaplain that would just, one, show up at your meetings and pray for you and just be there and talk and interact with the fire crew, and two, show up at like scenes when there's tragedy that happens, you have to go and the house burned down and somebody comes." There's not a fire station in our country that would say no to that. There's not. Yeah. They would say, "Of course you can show up." And if they say no, then you just show up anyway. Show up bringing cookies. They'll talk to you.
Wow. Bring a peace offering.
that's pretty much my strategy for anything is show up bringing cookies.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, I'm always interested when we have guests on to kind of know what's feeding into their lives presently. Are there any books you're reading or maybe blogs you go to? That's something you can share with our listeners?
Yeah, I love the book that I had to read it. I shouldn't say I had to, but I did. When I started this job, Dr. Dennis Jackson said, "Hey, you really need to read the book When Helping Hurts," which is kind of more of a textbook. There's another book, honestly, that is a little less of a textbook. It's called We Are Not the Hero, and it's all about just pretty much how do we really help in different environments when it relates, and it relates to missions, but honestly, it relates a lot to American ministry as well. How do you really help the parent that's struggling with their kids or whatever it may be? I would say those two books. I'm looking over on my shelf. Oh, the other book, I would be a book that honestly changed the way I read the Bible is The Divine Mentor by Wayne Cordeiro.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can read it standing up in the bookstore. You don't have to buy the book, but I have it on my shelf, and it just outlines a way of studying the Bible that, to be honest, I heard when I was in 7th grade, but I never did it. And then, Cordeiro writes a book about it, and now I have it on my shelf, and it was really helpful to me in my own quiet time and devotional life and the like. So, yeah.
We actually had one of the authors of When Helping Hurts on the show. That was
I watched that.
Yeah, fascinating read, and
Yeah.
just a wonderful guy and heart for ministry.
Well, Chad, before I get to this last question, there's one comment in the chat room. Someone wants me to tell you that they want to go to Sweden. So I think people are throwing their hat in the ring about that.
No, this is a true story. I got to tell you real quick.
Okay.
This story. I'm with Dr. Jackson.
Yeah.
And it's like my 3rd week on the job. And you go into everything with high hopes. Like, I'm going to meet these amazing people, and we're going to change the world by the weekend and
Yeah.
all of this. And like, my little boy asked me, he met Dr. Lyon one day.
Yeah.
And I told him Dr. Lyon was the general superintendent of the Wesleyan Church. He literally said this to me as she walked away. How long before you have her job? I said, I don't think I'm going for her job. And he said, I think you could have it in about 3 weeks. And I've been here longer than 3 weeks. I don't have it yet. I
Yeah.
can tell you that.
Yeah.
But all that to say, the Sweden comment, this guy comes up to me. He comes up to me at this conference. He said, I want to go to Sweden. I just feel like I'm supposed to go to Sweden. And I said, well, why do you feel like God's leading you to Sweden? He said, I really, really like IKEA, he said. And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, really? I love IKEA. He was being dead level serious. He's like, I love everything about IKEA. I like the Swedish meatballs. And I'm like, well, you don't have to go to Sweden to go to IKEA. Like, move to Cincinnati to go to IKEA, Like, good grief. So, anyway, I literally, we uninvited him overseas. Like, we're not deploying him. That's one of my coworkers probably chatting on there.
Oh, gotcha. The other question is that while you were in Michigan, you were very involved in the community. What would you're not in pastoral ministry anymore, what would you say to, just like you were talking about with fire departments, what are some suggestions you would give pastors about connecting with community leadership and being involved in community leadership?
Yeah. I would say a couple of things. I've been in kind of larger city settings, and I've been in rural settings, a town called Burnups, 200 people in the town. And so I've been in both of those. What I know about both of those settings is that every town, one, has a little greasy spoon restaurant where there's a bunch of 80-year-old guys who are sitting at the head table today talking about Syria. Every single one of them, every town has that restaurant. You got to go to that restaurant, whether you like their food or not.
Good. Yeah.
And you got to eat at that restaurant and get to know the waitresses and joke around with the guys at the head table. And I'll just, toward the end of my time in Byron Center, I'd just sit down at the table and say, what are we talking about today? And more and more, I realized that was a way of getting connected. I would say there are every school system. I was real involved in the school system in Byron Center. Every school system needs a pastor or a neighborhood friend just to pick up the phone and connect there. And, we moved here, and I called our school superintendent for our community and sat down with her and told her, I said, look, I was a school board member before, but now I'm just a concerned parent, and I just want you to know I'm going to pray for you every day, and if there's any way I can help you in any way, let me know. So I'm trying to practice what I preach these days more than anything. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Well, where can Chad, as people want to know more about what you're doing at Global Partners, where can people find you on the internet?
I am on Facebook. If you look for me on Facebook, I'm on Facebook. Global Partners also has a fan page on Facebook. You can like that, and we're going to try to be using that more and more along the way. I can always be emailed. Just my last name is McCallum, McCallum, the letter.
To that. So let me try this again, guys.
I can do some sound.
Here we go again.
One of the challenges that we face in leadership at all levels of the church today is there are so many demands on our time. And I'm grateful for this opportunity to come and be a part of this Missional Holiness Conference, because I'm honestly leaving here feeling that this was a wise investment of my time.
The conference really is the epitome of putting feet to the holiness message, how our actions revolve around the message that we say we have as holiness people.
This is a great event to be reminded, to learn, and to be challenged. To go and to make an impact in this 21st century.
At the Missional Holiness Conference, there's people that are doing missional holiness, and we want to hear from them. I want to learn from them, and to be able to meet with other pastors we're all just trying to figure this thing out.
One of the things I love about the Missional Holiness Conference is to be reminded that missional living and holiness come together. It's a good reminder for me and a great way to help encourage the entire church to continue to grow in that missional holiness to reach our world for Him.
There's no other conference in our denomination like it, and I was delighted that God had placed this on the heart of Dwight Meixel, and he has been looking at this, planning this, working with this, trying to figure out how to do this, and I believe God has called Dwight to lead that in the Wesleyan Church.
All right, and now it's time for
Download of the Week.
Not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's a download that I suggested about 10, 12 weeks ago, but it's called Umano, U-M-A-N-O. This is an app on Android. It's on iOS, and these are stories. It goes out, it grabs stories across the internet. They have professional readers that read these articles for you. It is a great tool. A lot of times I'll just let it run, and when there's a story that I really like, then I will do a quick search, and you can find it in printed form. It's just a great app.
Do they have a student version where you can have Homer's The Odyssey or whatever like that?
No.
Well, do your homework for you.
No, I'm sorry.
I wonder how you become a professional reader because
as you're about to see, they said it.
Yeah.
These guys can read a story.
Oh, boy. All right. So that's the download of the week, and highly, highly recommend that app if you are not familiar with it. Again, U-M-A-N-O. We got the link in our show notes.
Is it Umano or Umano?
I don't know.
Can you say it like Gru would say it?
Very, very big, very important, Umano.
Very good. All right, let's move on to They Said It.
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
Yeah.
If you logged on to your CompuServe account during the Clinton administration and bought a book like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus from Amazon, Kindle Matchbook now makes it possible for that purchase 18 years later to be added to your Kindle library at a very low cost. Russ Grandinetti, Kindle's Vice President of Content, explaining Amazon's new Kindle Matchbook program that they say will launch in October. Source CNET.
Umano.
Amazon, yes. All right. The data shows a continual shift to digital content. The number of Bible readers who use their smartphones or cell phone to search for Bible content has increased each year, with a 6% increase in the use of this format from 2012. Use of the internet to find Bible content has also increased, up 4% from 2011. The American Bible Society, in a recent published study that revealed, among other things, that 41% of Americans used the internet to read the Bible this past year. Source, Fox News.
Despite what they said, he was born breathing and kicking. When I look at him now, I can't believe what almost happened because someone made a presumption from a scan. I just want other mothers to know my story so that nothing like this happens again. Sarah Hagan, a mother who was advised to abort her baby at 24 weeks because after an ultrasound, the medical staff said he was brain dead. Source, Life News.
I killed a man. I was out with some friends. We were all drinking really heavily. Just hopping from bar to bar. Just trying to have a good time, and I lost control. You know, sometimes I drink because I have depression that I struggle with every day. And I just drink to get out of my head for a few hours. You know, I really don't like the person I become when I drink. I've ruined relationships in the past. I start fights. You know, I just generally become a person that people don't like being around. On that particular night, I made a mistake and got in my truck. Completely blacked out and decided to try to drive home. I ended up going the wrong way down the highway, directly into oncoming traffic, and I struck a car. I killed a man. Immediately following that, I consulted some high-powered attorneys who told me stories about similar cases where the drivers got off. They were convinced that they could get my blood test thrown out, and all I would have to do for that was lie. Well, I won't go down that path.
My name is Matthew Cordell, and on June 22nd, 2013, I hit and killed Vincent Canzani. This video will act as my confession. When I get charged, I will plead guilty and take full responsibility for everything I've done to Vincent and his family. If I took a different route, maybe I would get a reduced sentence and maybe I would get off. But I won't dishonor Vincent's memory by lying about what happened. By releasing this video, I know exactly what it means. I'm handing the prosecution everything they need to put me away for a very long time. But I'm willing to take that sentence for just one reason, and that reason is so I can pass this message on to you. I beg you, and I say the word beg specifically. I'm begging you, please don't drink and drive. Don't make the same excuses that I did. Don't say it's only a few miles, or you've only had a few beers, or you do it all the time, it'll never happen to you, because it happened to me. And all of those are just excuses to make yourself feel better about a decision that you know is wrong and could cost lives. I can't bring Mr. Canzani back, and I can't erase what I've done. But you can still be saved. Your victims can still be saved. So please.
All right. So I think it was Saturday night. I got an email from you, Tej, and you had that link.
You need to watch this video.
Asked me what I thought.
And you said that the young man was arrested.
Yesterday. He sure was. So the whole story here again. He decided to do this before he was officially indicted with any charges. Making a confession of guilt here. And as I've worked to process this story, it's just been interesting in my heart, the kind of the things that are coming up in all this. Because part of me is like, whoa, yes. Like, part of me is like, this dude's a hero. And then I'm like, but no, he's a drunk driver. And it's been this weird, thing. And I think, Tony, you, in our conversation about this ahead of the show, I think you summarized it really well.
Yeah, Matthew and I had a text exchange yesterday, and so Matthew says here, part of me wants to really laud this guy as a hero, but then he killed a guy. And my response was, He's not a monster, and he's not a saint. He's a man who made a bad decision that he and others will have to live with for years to come. I admire him for taking responsibility and telling the world.
Kind of reminds me of a guy, similar situation. His name was David, who had a guy killed to cover up an affair he had had. And I would say we look back on King David as a flawed man, but in the end, a man after God's own heart. And I mean, I don't know this guy from the video, but I think there's something about that openness and that confession that tugs at all of us.
Here's the difference between Matthew Cordell here and King David.
Yeah.
King David didn't make the admission of guilt before he was indicted.
Yeah, that's correct. And so
that's what's fascinating to me about this story. That's what's absolutely fascinating, because I feel like this doesn't happen the way it should. And so in the further conversation with Tony about this video, went down this road. What about, like, I know on occasion some people who have been in ministry and who have gotten in trouble.
Yeah.
Done something that they shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
Particularly sexual sins.
Yeah.
And yes, have been convicted and found guilty of that, and have made not guilty pleas.
Yeah.
As an effort, like, to reduce a plea sentence or something like that. And for just a guy to do this, like, I always, I've always had this thought in the back of my mind: if I ever was arrested for something that I did, I don't think I could lie about it. I don't think I could, say that I'm not guilty if actually I was. And so it's just fascinating to see somebody live this out.
I believe in this video at one point he says he won't do it, and one of the reasons why he says he won't cheapen the life of the person that was killed.
He won't dishonor that in that way, and I think that's great. Now, another fascinating thing about this story is the daughter of the guy, Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the guy's last name, first name Vincent. She doesn't believe this. She says she thinks this is hogwash. She thinks this is an effort for him to get a reduced plea sentence.
Oh, wow!
So that's coming from a family member.
Wow!
And I can't put myself totally in this spot because I've not experienced these things. But as a family member, let's go there for a second. You're the family member of the guy who's been killed, and you see this. What do you do with it?
Yeah. Well, I see that. I mean, I say, well, here's your evidence. I mean, here's a full confession.
Oh, I would guess that they don't want any sympathy.
Right.
The family members who've lost a loved one don't want any sympathy going towards that guy. And my response to that is I just simply give them a pass. They're the ones that
Right.
And
yeah,
I get that, but the statement that they're making is that his heart's not sincere here is really it. And I can't go down that road either.
Yeah.
I do feel like, I mean, my observation, not who can judge the heart of man,
right?
But my observation of this guy, as I look at what he's doing here, I feel like he feels a weight over what has happened, and that this is a genuine thing. Regardless, it's a very interesting story, very interesting thing, and as of this morning, it had 1,600,000 some views on YouTube.
It's officially viral.
Yeah. If you've ever been in a courtroom with somebody who pled guilty, it is a powerful moment, because how do you plead guilty? And then they say, do you understand what this means? Do you understand? And it's like even more weight on this decision and confession. But I'm like you, I meet people all the time who are trying to, there's so much gaming of the system. And it's heartbreaking, and
The question is, can these tragedies be redeemed? And so, in my little way of thinking, I think that this is how you redeem tragedies like this. That you get that it's a confession, admission of guilt, tell what really happened, and then his message is for the whole world. So he's reaching out to someone else to say, you know what, I'm about ready to go to prison. You can escape this if you'll change your behavior. I think this is the way, and I believe this. So let's talk to what Matthew's talked about, maybe a minister who falls to sexual sin. I actually know of a case where a minister actually went to prison over a sexual sin, and now he speaks to men's group. And I heard a pastor recently who's really upset about that.
Right.
So this guy's not ordained again. I mean,
Yeah.
he'll never have that. But a pastor is very upset that he's out talking to other men. And I just disagreed with the pastor.
Yeah.
I said, wait a minute. I think this is a way for him to redeem
Yeah.
his wrong. To say,
Yeah.
listen, if you're practicing, if you're on the road that I was on, you need to have all the headlights come on and see what the end result of this is going to be.
Yeah.
So I think my heart goes out to the family. Obviously, they don't want to see this guy get any press. I get that. But I'm with you, TJ. I think there's a sincerity to this.
I don't mean to just sabotage the rest of They Said It and continue on this story, but you saw him at one point in the video hold up this business card that he had written on the business card. It said, "I'll take full responsibility for my actions." And then down at the bottom in the corner it says, "Because I said I would." I'd encourage you to go look at that blog at some point. Started by a guy whose father passed away, and in an effort to honor the memory of his father, he started this thing, Because I Said I Would. He said his father was the kind of guy who he was a man of his word. His yes was yes and his no was no. And so he decided to print himself up this set of business cards where he would make a promise to somebody, write it down on that card and hand that card to them, and then he would fulfill that promise because he said he would. And when he had done that, he'd get the card back. They'd give it back to him. Well, he decided then to start sending cards out to people who requested them. So you can go to this website and get 10 of them sent to you.
Wow.
If you want for you to make a promise about something, hand that to
very
somebody
good.
and say, "I'm doing this because I said I would do it." And then you get it's
cool.
The guy who filmed this and who put this together is the guy behind that blog. And this was just he got a message from Matthew here saying, "This happened. I need to take responsibility for what I've done. So because I said I'm going to do this, I need your help to make this happen." And so he basically collaborated with him to do it because he said he was going to take responsibility for his actions.
Yeah, another interesting layer to the
I
story.
know, this
Yes,
story
I didn't know that.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah, well, this is a great conversation piece. We highly recommend that you take a look at it and maybe use it in a ministry context as a discussion starter.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm excited. I'm actually excited about the very first story that you read. So Kindle Matchbook comes out in October. And if you bought a hard copy of a Kindle book going all the way back to the beginning, you're going to be able to get the Kindle version of it. It may cost as much as $2.99. In some cases, you're just going to get it free. And this is something that you have been
I've been wanting this
for
for
a long time.
Yeah. I've been wanting this for a long time. And when you buy the hard copy book, how great to get that. They did this with CDs a while back. And I've actually found occasions where buying a physical CD with Amazon's auto rip feature is cheaper than buying the MP3 version of the album.
Oh,
so
wow.
get this, they mail you the album and then you get the digital download along with it.
There you
and
go.
it's
Wow.
$4 cheaper. How can this be? I mean, it shouldn't be this way, first and foremost, because think about the gas and the expense. We're being poor stewards of energy to order the CD. But
I didn't even think about that. So I'm excited, and then you ruin it for anybody saying we're kind of being poor stewards.
I'm still excited.
Yeah, this is great. I'm pumped about it. I'll be
I'm
at
too.
some point going through my entire purchase library and checking to see. Can I?
I went all the way back to the beginning. I'm surprised how many hard copy books that I have that I don't have Kindle version for. So I will go back systematically and just see. And especially any of them are free. Boom.
Yeah, and I hope that publishers. I mean, wouldn't it be great if they said, free is the neat way to go on this. Because when you get down into it, like the searching, some of the indexing you can do, but then there are the occasions when you need the hard copy of the book too. It's a interesting paradigm. The only fear that I have is that it is a Kindle matchbook. Don't get your iPad too hot. Don't overheat it because the matchbook could catch fire. And
let's leave the stand up to Chad. Okay?
Yeah. What's cool now is a lot of the way they do a lot of book launches now. If you will go and pre-order the book on Amazon, you automatically get a PDF of the book, Kindle version of the book, Nook version. They send you all the digital versions, and then you get. But that's how that's the hook to get you the pre-order some of these books. Oh, Priscilla Hammond's put in the chat room how to become a Umanu narrator. So I will be checking on that.
You'll be checking on that after you get done checking on Amaflon or to see if you're
that was so good because it just asked about being a professional reader.
You mock me now.
I threw in the American Bible Society study. This is a published study. Here's what's significant about it. In 2012, you had 41% of Americans who digitally access the scriptures. Either through their smartphone or through the internet. Now, pause to think about this. 41%. Almost half the nation. And it speaks about if you have the internet, you have the Bible. You know, I mean, it's no longer just sitting on this shelf. Hey, are we bothering you over there?
No, you're fine.
What are you doing?
I'm engaging.
Quit playing the game.
I'm engaging with our listeners.
All right, real quick, we're running out of time. The last story that Heath read. This is an interesting story because Sarah Hagen at 24 weeks was told that her baby was brain dead. We advise that you get an abortion. Sarah agonized over it. The story doesn't say anything about whether she's a believer, where she stood on abortion. As a matter of fact, you get the impression from this story that she's not opposed to abortion. But in the end, she decided not to get an abortion. Well, her son was born. He's perfectly normal. To add a little twist to the story, now Sarah is suing the hospital system for just the whole emotional aspect of this. So there's kind of two layers to the story. Number one, the baby's born normal. Number two, does the medical community that she was a part of bear legal responsibility for, the agony that she went through? And I don't know.
How these people, do this scan, they think, how do you make that big of a mistake?
I have no idea.
And you wonder, she's just one person. How many people have aborted babies that were brain dead that were perfectly fine?
Yeah, if anything, it does speak to the science isn't perfect.
Right.
And, does the medical system, are they liable for emotional damage? Obviously this was a dilemma for her.
Yeah, she carried this baby, for 15, 16 more weeks.
Thinking
and preparing herself. Maybe they didn't have their nursery finished, and they didn't finish the nursery. Maybe they sent back all their baby. I don't know, man.
The story's not real detailed, but it does give you just the bare essentials. And again,
let me bring up another story on Down syndrome. I think I may have quoted it at one point, but there's a 2002 study in the UK and Europe that found that the elective abortion rate of a parent who found out that their child was going to have Down syndrome was 91 to 93%.
Right. Yep.
Wow.
Yep, that's right. There's also, so there's always studies for things. There's also another study that we covered on this show that talked about it's like a happiness factor, and I'm not getting the exact language, but how the joy that Down syndrome children bring into a home, and there are a lot of factors that they can't control for.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's another study that just enters into that, which is interesting. In the United States, was that a European study that you?
I believe that's what I'm quoting. I've been scrambling to track it down.
I think that there's a parallel study in the United States that 90% of those end up in abortion.
This was the UK and Europe. United States, a number of studies have examined the abortion rate. 3 studies estimate the rates at 95, 98, and 87%. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, next week on the show, we're going to have Dr. Devin Smith from Oklahoma Wesleyan University. He's in charge of all the mano.
Every time, that's just going to be what I do. I need to get a sound effect every time somebody makes a verbal flub.
Mano. Yeah. He's in charge of all the online learning at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. We'll also talk about there's a credentialing program that they do. Yeah. Cross-training. And they just do it at cost. They don't make any money on it. And this is if you are studying for ordination in the Wesleyan Church, then you can take these online courses to Oklahoma Wesleyan University. So it's going to be great to talk with him. All right, Heath, where can our listeners find you?
They can find me at heathmullican.com and on Twitter. I am the only Heath Mullican in the world, so Twitter, Facebook. Find me, follow me, love me.
All right, Master TG.
You can find me medicating the heat rash that I got from the malaria medicine combined with the sun exposure.
Great googly moogly. I'm never going to Haiti with you guys.
Or, if you'd rather, at MatthewTG.com.
All right, you can find me at AKC64 at Twitter and at Facebook. If you want to do further research on anything we discussed today, you can find all the links to the stories we covered at our website, thetechnologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com, or better yet, leave us a voicemail by calling us at 3049-TEOLOGY. That's 304-986-5649. Leave us a message. We may even play your personal comments on the air. As always, hey, thanks for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Adios. For a second, I thought that music was the CBS Sunday Morning News. What was that guy?